Fantastic. That was great. All this and no audio. The joys of live and no feedback. Thanks a lot. I appreciate the messages. All right, so let me start this again. uh that was rather embarrassing. Um welcome live. Welcome to the show. Audio is on. Learning experience and growing pains. So, back with my beginning where I was coming from with this. For some reason, my YouTube feeds have been filling up lately with all these suggestions of everybody uh, and their don't be a nice guy, don't be nice videos, and checked out a few of them. I get part of it, but another part of it I kind of don't agree with necessarily. So um, the origin of it, of course, and pretty much everybody who's going to be tuning in, I'm sure, understands the whole red pill, blue pill concept. You know, take the red pill, unplug from the comforting lies that society's been feeding you. You know, just be a nice guy and everything will work out for you. The girls will like you and blah, blah, blah. And we all know that's largely Disney horse crap. So, um, but the flip side with that is there is definitely truth to the saying of you can catch more flies with honey than you can with vinegar. So it seems to be a fine line that a lot of guys uh, seem to be going a little bit too far off the deep end. Probably leads to a lot of I know certainly for myself with going through it in the beginning, a little bit of the red pill rage or whatever you want to call it. Um, and I think that there's a bit of a different way to look at it and to attack it, which we're going to get into here tonight. So the whole thing of nice guys finish last. What's kind of a paradox? Do they? Um, if you're being a nice guy because you're looking for a certain return on being nice and that result, yes. The flip side is if you're not a decent human being, people aren't going to want to tolerate you. They're not going to want to associate with you, be your friend. As guys, you want the attention of women. If you're not halfway decent, they're not going to give you a whole lot. Um, Certainly not for very long, anyhow. All right. So that was a question on that. I got a bunch of notes and went out. Probably our last nice day of the year here. Got up to like 80 degrees. I went for a bike ride, so my hair's a little disheveled. Just got home a few minutes ago, making my notes, all of my stuff, enjoying nature today. Uh, so the whole thing of don't be nice. How's that working for you, Dr. Phil moment? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't work. So let's get into something with some men of the past. Kind of where I come up with a lot of my stuff and where it comes from. For me, it comes from my grandpa. Grandpa was probably the greatest man that I ever knew. And so let me give you a little bit of a background on my grandfather and who he was. My grandfather was an extremely nice man. He was very kind and he was very generous. He was a family man. When I say he was kind, like my grandfather had 4 daughters, but he coached the hockey team for the boys in town, helped with fundraisers, did things like that. And he didn't have sons, but he was a nice guy. Um, when people needed help, they would come to him because they knew that he was a nice guy and that he would help. With all of this, one thing that was very obvious, even from an extremely young age for me with my grandfather, was he had very clear boundaries. And he was a nice guy and he was generous, unless you tried to cross those boundaries. And if you did that, he would make sure you were aware of it and let you know. And at that point, he wouldn't be quite so nice. He would be nice if you respected his boundaries, but if you didn't respect them and you continued to push across them, then he wasn't nice. And he would put you back in your place kindly and then leave it. So, and my uncle was the same way. Um, and my uncle built a very large, successful business and did very well. And a lot of that was because of the fact that he was a pleasant man to do business with. He would listen to your side of it. If there was he was in the service industry. So if you had an issue with the service and there was a complaint, what do we do to make it right? As long as it was legitimate. And this is part of being nice. This whole thing of um, that you can't be. I don't understand it. I think a lot of it actually comes from this book. It's a good book. No More Mr. Nice Guy by Dr. Robert Glover. I've actually read it a couple of times. I took it along to do some of my notes here today. And there's some stuff that people follow in that when they say to not be nice, that they go too far with it. They don't necessarily get it all. The one thing that I find with a good talented writer is they will lead you down with their theories and teach you some of this, but they expect you to have a little bit of conscious thought in between the ears, be able to think for yourself. That it's never black and white. There's always room for maneuvering inside of their concepts. And some people just don't think like that. They read black and white and they don't understand that the world is not black and white. Everything black on this side, everything white on this side. The entire world is gray. You've got these thin, narrow strips on the edge that are black and white. Everything else is a varying shade of gray. You work in that space and learn how to work in it. So going back to my grandpa and my Uncle Wayne, is these guys were true alphas in every sense of the word. They were very respected men. My grandfather had a very large dairy, and a dairy farm, and my uncle had a very large service business. And people came to my grandfather to get advice on their farms and how to make their herds better, produce more milk, such stuff like that. They were very, their opinions were respected. The way they were, guys just wanted to be with them. Like every time that I was hanging out with my grandpa and we went to town, it was constant. Guys, Clarence, you have to come for coffee. When guys would see him, they would walk across the street to shake his hand, talk to him, and make their presence known. They wanted to be associated with this man. They emulated him in a lot of ways. And both my grandfather and my uncle, they were very intentional men, very focused. They knew what they wanted, knew how to pursue it and how to get it. And because of that, they did well in life with everything. Their friends liked them. The communities respected them. Their families loved them. There's just not much more to say than that. So the whole thing of not being nice is a bit of a misnomer. You set your boundaries of the things that you want and expect in life. And as long as people are respecting them, you can be nice. You can be very pleasant, and operate in that space. And you'll make better friends. You'll have better conversations. You'll end up with better relationships, deeper communication, all those sorts of things. I was raised this way. I'm naturally generally a nice guy. And if you ask people about me, most people who know me well will tell you that I'm a very nice guy. And you'll meet some people who say that I'm not. Those are people that generally cross the boundaries, don't respect them. And when I ask them not to, and they continue to push anyhow, because when you are nice, people tend to think that they can push those boundaries fairly easily. And at that point, I stopped being nice, and they don't like that. And that's just a whole respect thing. I expect people to respect my boundaries. I respect other people's boundaries. So, and when they don't, then you stop that. So, going through my notes here. So, back to that with the book, the whole thing of, did you read it? What is the meaning of it? The whole the whole don't be nice thing is where that comes from. Is don't be the proverbial typical, being a nice guy expecting, like Dr. Glover puts in there, the covert contracts of, well, I'm being nice to this person, so he owes me something. Those are the things that he's speaking about. So be a nice person, be kind and all of that, but don't do it with expectation. Do it because um, it's just a better way to be as a human being and be a human being. Um, so be nice, not expecting the reward on it, but you actually are nice and kind to honor yourself, because as a nice person um, and a kind person, you're honoring yourself as much as you are honoring anybody else. Uh, this is, it's just, it makes everything better in society. The whole thing of, don't open doors. I get a kick out of this one. Anymore people say, well, I don't open doors for people because it's, they just get mad and whatever. I hold the door open. I quite frankly laugh if you get some blue-haired Karen or something that decides that she wants to be a feminist, and I can open my own door. Yes, you can. I can open it for you as well, but it's called taking the high road. And I don't really get a lot of that. I've had it once or twice. I find it kind of funny because I just let them do it. Like, go ahead and spout your, spew off and do whatever you want. Fine. I just smile. Door's still open for you. I don't really care. It's called taking the high road. So when you honor yourself and you take the high road, you know that you have done what you can for the world, and you're not doing it for reasons of you're looking for people to return something to you, other than the fact of, a simple thing: walk down the street and smile at people. If you walk down the street and smile at people, they smile back. It's a very contagious thing. The whole thing of being nice and being pleasant, it's actually contagious as well. So this, I don't know, that whole thing just kind of irritates me. Got under my skin when I saw all of those feeds. So, but with this is you have to prioritize what are your needs and what are your desires, right? As long as you're prioritizing that and working towards that, my priority is I want people to be happy and pleasant when they're in my presence. I don't want people to be rude to me, so try to be nice at the same time. And generally, then people aren't, because I'm capable of returning it. Don't want to, but I can. So that is the big thing: is you need to be able to prioritize what your needs and your desires are. And a good question is, do you know what they are? If you don't, then maybe you need to figure that out. So prioritize what those are, figure that out. When you've got it figured out, then it's easy to carry yourself with that kind of an air. And confidence comes from that. You're confident in being a nice person because you're going to learn who's going to want to take advantage of you and who isn't. It's going to help with your situational awareness with all of that stuff. You'll start to see patterns in people. When you put it out there, when you put that being nice out there, the patterns are going to get returned or they're not. And so you'll know who are the people that you actually want to associate with and who are the ones that you don't want to associate with. Whereas if you're not nice in the first place, a lot of times you don't know who those people are. It's hard to figure it out because you're not giving them a reason to be nice back to you if you're not putting it out in the first place. So it makes finding things and negotiating the general passive life more difficult. Why make your life more difficult? Make it easy. I don't know. It's a whole lot better when it's easy. So, and when you carry yourself this way, it helps you respect yourself. And when you carry yourself positively and with a smile on your face and you're pleasant, it's obvious that you respect yourself. And when you are pleasant and smiling and respecting yourself, people automatically respect you back. it just comes because it's an air that is an aura that is carried about you that people see and respect. And this is what we all want. We all want to be liked and respected. So if you carry this and you act this way, you are pleasant, you're just going to be respected. People will treat you better in everything, just in their conversations with you, their mannerisms, their attitudes, all of the above. It goes a long way. And this is how when you do this and you respect yourself and carry yourself with that respect, this is how you claim your personal power. And you become more confident and comfortable in who you are, more comfortable in your own skin. This is what true masculinity is, in my opinion. When you are confident, pleasant, respect yourself, and others respect you, there's your definition of your alpha masculine right there. Now, all of a sudden, people want to emulate you because, geez, that guy's nice. He respects himself. People respect him. They look up to him. They treat him well. That's how I want to be treated. So they emulate you. We're right back to the whole thing of being alpha and turning this around in the proper way, as opposed to somebody who just doesn't care and ignores everybody and pushes them off to the side. Like, society is out there. They're around you every day, regardless. So make your life easier. An easy life is a whole lot easier. I don't know why you deliberately try to complicate it. So with all of this, kind of leads to another point, which I'll drop the join link for later here if anybody wants to join, ask questions. But did that go? No, there we go. Did that. So now when you have done all of this, when you are a pleasant person, you respect yourself, and you've claimed your power like that and carry yourself with that, and people see that and respect you and carry your or try to emulate you, at this point, trust me, guys, women see this. This is exactly what they want to be around. You respect yourself, you respect others, you're pleasant. They want to be around this. There's your key to how to get the girls. It's not that hard. Once again, keep your boundaries very clear, very set. And going back to the other thing, you have figured out and prioritize what your needs and your desires are. And if someone does meet them, you just don't invite them into your life. But then this is the thing. When you're nice like this, people are going to want to be in your life, and they are going to emulate those things because that's what they want to be around. So, of course, yeah. I see this. Genuine cutie pie. You have to be very careful when being too nice. This goes back to the thing of being nice, looking for something in return. If you are being nice where you're looking for something in return, that is being too nice. Being nice just simply for the fact of you're comfortable in who you are and you do it to reward and honor yourself, you're not at that point. So people have a difficult time taking advantage of you because you're not expecting something in return. So when someone offers you something in return, it's a genuine offer because you're not sitting there, I've been nice, it's got to come back to me. I don't do that. So if it comes back to me, fantastic. If it doesn't, fantastic. I still did and got what I wanted. So thanks for that. Nice to see the girls tuning in. So there you go with be a pleasant person, and women will want to pay attention to you or to be around you. And going back to the thing of, what you choose for what you're going to allow into your life. Ask yourself these questions. This is the biggest thing with all of this stuff. Like, honestly, with this and with anybody's advice and whatnot, is always ask yourself the questions. Is this what I want? Is this on my purpose? Is this what I desire? And if it does align, then use it. If it doesn't, then disregard it. But you don't have to follow everything exactly to the T, because none of these things answer every single question. And There's always variance in everything. That's what this thing is for. So try to use it. Trust me, I went too long not using it. So I say try to use it. It's a whole lot easier when you use it. All right. So what's we got here? Yeah. So however you choose to define as well what you want with women in your life. You want marriage, you want just girlfriend, however you want it. They're going to want to be around. So make sure you know what you want, because when you have respected yourself and put yourself out there in a pleasant, fun, happy way, this is going to come around. So you'll be able to decide which pieces it is you want, what you expect from people, and guess what? You'll get it. It makes life easy. So ask yourself the questions of, or the whole thing. Ask yourself this simple question. If you can't be kind, pleasant, or understanding, do you really think a woman is going to want to be around you? Not for very long. Would you stick around somebody who's like that? Come on, think about it. We all know that. So this brings us to another thing, kind of a point that I've got here. I didn't really think I'd fill up the whole show with this, so I had to add a little bit to it. But everybody's red pill journey. We're all on our own journey. Nobody's path is going to be the same, and nobody's destination is going to be exactly the same. What works for me is not going to work exactly for you. And what works for you is not going to work exactly for me. They're similar paths, they're similar destinations, but the destination we're all looking for is happier, healthier, easier, in control of our lives, on our purpose, and defining our boundaries, knowing what we want, what we don't want, which part of your boundaries goes back to respecting yourself, because this is what I want and this is what I accept. And I respect myself enough to know that if somebody doesn't meet this criteria, I don't allow them in. No is an acceptable answer. And if somebody wants in, they're going to have to respect that. And same thing with you with them. So you have to think about those things. Like I said, there is no, with all of these things, everybody, I had so many of them this week, it wasn't even funny. Everybody was like, just don't be a nice guy, don't be a nice guy. And the whole thing. There is no one way. If you ever get somebody who's telling you that, there is only one way. This is the way to be, this is the destination, and this is what you have to do to get there. If somebody's ever telling you that, you need to walk away, because there is always more than one path. Always. So if somebody is saying that their way is the only way, it's probably not somebody you should be with, because they're telling you that you shouldn't use this thing. You should always use this thing. You should always be thinking, what works for me and what doesn't? Can I apply that in a different way? Is that not quite good for me, so I'm just not going to do that? Use your head. Like, that's the biggest thing. I guess my whole point of this tonight was use your head. So many of these things just irritated me this week watching that. Like I said, there's many paths and many destinations. I guess the entire point of tonight's thing is exactly this: is you and you alone determine your path, and you alone determine your destination. Not anybody else. You get to decide. Means you got to use the meatball between the ears, because otherwise you're just going to follow somebody else's path. And congratulations, when you get to the destination, you're not going to be happy because it's not yours. So think about that. Do you know what it is that you want? If you don't, maybe you need to sit down and figure it out. Maybe you need to talk to somebody, have them help you figure it out. Write it out. Take some notes. Ask some people some questions. What works for you and what doesn't. And more importantly, why? That's always my follow-up question. And somebody says, I did this, and it got me these results. Why? Why did Formula Y equal X? Because somewhere in there, something seems different. And it seems like it could have gone a different way. So how is it you got to that point? I want to understand this. When you understand, you can deconstruct all the paths and you can look at it, go, that one, that one, that one, that's my path. Those work for me. That I like. That I don't, but I like this that he's got, so I'm going to take that and I'm going to put it in mine. You figure it out. And you put yourself on your path to get there. And so when you're determining your paths and your destinations, no matter what you determine, whether you're kind or not, boundaries. That's another big part of this. I think that's the biggest part that a lot of people don't understand. Most of this book, in all reality, if you deconstruct it right down to its base story, boundaries. Clear and simple. To me, this book is about boundaries. Do you know what yours are? Do you know what the people you're having relationships with, whether they are friendships, romantic relationships, girlfriends, work, business? Do you know what they are? Respect them. Make sure people respect yours. As long as that is taking place, there's no need to not be nice. I don't understand that whole part of it. So that was, to me, the entire basis of everything I took away. When people cross your boundaries, you let them know that they have. Make sure you know what they are, define them, and let people know what they are. Or if they're getting close to them, if you haven't defined them, you let them know, look, this boundary doesn't work for me, or this what you're doing doesn't work for me. You can't continue this if we're going to continue our conversation and engage in this. Yeah, that's a good one. The red pill tends to force guys to believe that they must check off all the group think boxes, or you aren't part of the cool kids club. It's exactly right. Exactly. Chris is a friend of mine. And what works for Chris, 100% of what works for Chris doesn't work 100% that works for Bentley. And when it works 100% for Bentley, it doesn't work 100% for Chris. But the things that do work, we agree on. We respect what each other thinks and does. And that's totally fine. We operate within that. And that is the big whole thing with this, the whole don't be nice, do things my way. I just don't understand that. There's so much of a fracture and a divide in the whole red pill community. Everybody hating everybody, and it's my way, and all of that, and don't be nice. And it's an entire series of everybody's crossed everybody's boundaries and they're mad at each other and hate each other. And then they won't have conversations. Work it out. What's wrong with agreeing to disagree? Just because you don't agree with somebody doesn't mean you can't get along with them. Because usually what you disagree on is this big, but you agree on this much. Well, is this important? Really? Ask yourself that question. Is it really that important? Most of the time it's not. Most of the time you can work past it. So, yeah. Anyhow, going back to like I said, if anybody, doesn't matter who it is, and trust me, even I will tell you, my way is not 100% going to work for you. You can take bits and pieces of what I'm sharing and use it. The pieces that don't work for you, don't use them. And I'm serious about that. Think for yourself. I personally, for my relaxing, I like going out. You can see my videos. I like going out and hanging out in nature. You might be somebody who doesn't want to do that. Don't do it, because trust me, I've had to rescue a few people off hiking trails and stuff like that. If you aren't, if you aren't capable of or comfortable doing that, don't do it. I don't want to have to rescue you. I don't want to have somebody have to come rescue you because you decided to do it because I said so. Don't ever take anything I say and it must be that way and do it. And same thing with anybody else. Like I said, if anyone tells you that is their way or the only way, and if it's not, and you need to run away from that person. So this kind of goes back to somebody referenced it earlier, a video I released earlier this week. to learn the power of silence. Because when somebody is trying to ram something down your throat or negotiate difficult with you or something like that, slowing the conversation down and taking a minute to think and processing it, it's going to give you that mental clarity to figure out this doesn't work for me or it does. And will allow you to logically solve the problem, usually come to a mutual agreement one way or another. Or if not, you learn that we're back to the whole thing, across the boundaries, and it's time to walk away, whatever it may be. Yeah, that's a good one. Cutie pie. Men are looking for women to enter their frame, and it may come across as their way or the highway. At some point, you have to give a concession, usually, because nothing is ever going to be completely your way. And if it is, it's probably a relationship you're paying for. And if that's what you want, go for it. All the power to you. Personally, I like interactions, which means there's some give and take. Make sure you don't give everything, the whole, now you're being nice, expecting something in return. You give what you're willing to give. You compromise on something that doesn't affect your core values, who you are, what you believe in. If it's, once again, we're back to that whole thing. If, the whole project is, or the whole thing is this, and there's only this much that you don't want to align on, ask yourself, is that important? Well, I can maybe separate that out. Yeah, that's a good one. So anyhow, back onto that other point of, like I said, use your brain. Think for yourself. Don't let others think for you. We're all individuals. No two people are going to be wired the same exactly and do everything the same. So always keep that in the back of your mind. You're going to have to think things through. And sometimes somebody else's shit isn't going to smell so good, and you're going to have to do it a different way. Because sometimes yours doesn't smell so good, and they're going to do it a different way. Except the fact that sometimes you're going to be wrong. Because guess what? You're human, which means you're going to make mistakes every single day of your life. Get used to it. I do. So, yeah, just like I was saying, don't let other people think for you. And it's, I don't know exactly what the hell I wrote in that note because I can't understand it. So some kind of gibberish. Oh, so the other thing, if you're never nice and you go through life, build yourself an empire or an enterprise of some sort, and you have more than you need or your family needs. This is the great part about doing something like that and being nice, is you now have the opportunity to change the world. You might only change one person or one thing, but you have an opportunity to make your mark on the world. And if you're not nice, and you're not kind, and you're selfish, you're never going to do that. What the hell was the point? What was the point of doing all of that for yourself when you have the opportunity to change the world and leave it better than the way you found it? Simple question. I don't know. You might only change one person. Maybe only change one person's life, one person at a time. But you never know what that person's going to do and where it's going to go. Paying it forward. Because the person you help might turn out to be the person who cures cancer or something like that. You never know. Well, the world's a strange place. These things come from the strangest people. I didn't have a whole lot to go on tonight. That's about what I got here. Okay, I'm not going to put that comment. That's funny. I don't know if anybody's got any questions. The join link has been dropped. If you do, click the join link and come on in, ask questions. You got a better way. If you think I'm wrong on this, I'd love. This is something I'd love to debate because I think this whole thing is. I think everybody misinterprets this book. Like I said, my entire interpretation of this thing was it's boundaries. Yet nobody else seems to see it that way. Am I wrong? Because if I'm wrong, please come in here and let's have a talk about it. I'm I'm completely okay with being wrong. In fact, if I am, show me, because I'd rather learn. So if anybody's got something on this or disagreement or anything, please pop in. We had a girl on, lady in the comments, Cutie Pie. If you want to join, give an honest assessment as a woman from a woman's standpoint. If a man doesn't have some sort of pleasantness about him, is there really somebody you want to be around? Unless it's a straight transactional type relationship. At the end of the day, is that really somebody you want to spend time with? Because this is the thing you got to think about, guys. Any kind of relationship you're in with a woman, 95% of it is going to be outside of the bedroom. So you kind of have to be nice if you're going to be able to negotiate that, or it's going to be unpleasant because only 5% of the time is going to be between the sheets. The rest of the time, you're going to be dealing with somebody. So if you're not nice, they're not going to deal with you very nicely. So I'd appreciate a woman's input on that. You're being encouraged. Come on in. Anybody else? Like I said, if I'm wrong or you have a different perspective on this, I'd really appreciate it. Yeah, that's exactly, Ernesto. Be benevolent, but don't let yourself get walked all over. It comes back to the whole thing. Boundaries. Define them. Know what they are. Make sure you know what they are. You can't be nice and not know where your boundaries are, or you will get walked all over. So, yeah. I like this one. I don't believe in taking any shit or grief, but I also believe you must be a good and honorable person. Absolutely. At the end of the day, we need to be, because at the end of the day, everybody has ups and downs, and every now and then we all need a hand up. So you need to be a good and honorable person, because if you're not, who the hell's going to help you? I kind of don't think that's true. I don't think that's true. Well, like I say, that's kind of what I've got for my notes on this for tonight. If nobody's got anything, oh, right, we got somebody calling in. Check this out. Got a few of them. Right on, popped in. So sad. Hey, Victor, how are you this evening?
Hey, Bentley. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can.
I actually realized today that Bentley is your last name, not your first name.
No, Bentley is my first name.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, okay, so James is like a second name?
James is my middle name. That's correct. Yes,
okay.
I don't use my last name. There's a whole long personal story behind that, but no, Bentley James is my name.
Okay, cool. My question is actually not on the topic. I mostly agree with you. Didn't talk a lot about people pleasers, right? But
right.
I have a trucking question actually.
Sure.
You was having 4 trucks and you was managing them, or you was working as well while managing them?
With trucks,
Yeah.
I own trucks.
You owned, but you was managing them, or you had like a 5th truck as well for yourself, and you was working while managing 4 trucks on the road?
Yes, I always drove one. I was never a sit in an office kind of person. I have an aversion to having my feet nailed down. I like to be on the go. So I always drove, even when I had multiple trucks.
Okay. How did you manage your time during like driving truck and dealing with all the office stuff?
Slept 5 hours a day. Multitasked a lot. A lot of audio notes. Uh, so the one thing with driving is you have a lot of time where you are, especially when you're in the countryside, where you can put some mental attention into some other things, and I would problem solve at that point in time. I would look at the list of problems, or I'd have conversations on the hands free phone, and bat ideas back and forth, toss things around. A lot of mental note taking. Some even that's why I'm pretty good at reading chicken scratch, because when you're driving and writing, it's chicken scratch, and you have to be able to learn how
Oh
to
yeah.
interpret that. So um, it was a constant thing. It is prioritize. The biggest thing for time management that I have found is prioritization.
Mm.
What is most important? Take care of that first. Something that is not as important, you can push that off till later, even if it comes up first. If it's not as important, put it off. Take care of your important things first. Make sure your heavy coordination items are taken care of, and then the smaller problems are a lot easier to take care of. When something requires a lot of thought, attention, I would leave that till I was somewhere where it didn't require a lot of attention. I assume you drive a truck, so if you think
Right
about it
now.
this way, okay. So if you think about it this way, it is not hard to think about a complex issue driving across Nebraska, because it's pretty flat and a lot of cornfields and not a whole lot to bother you. There's not a lot of traffic. You cannot think about that issue when you're driving through upstate New York,
Oh
right?
yeah.
So appropriate problem for appropriate attention span. And then you can deal with multiple problems at the same time, is how I broke a lot of it down. Um, Very complex issues, I generally tried to tackle first thing in the morning. That's when my mind personally is fresh. I think the clearest and the quickest early in the morning. It used to be when I was younger, late at night. As I got older, early in the morning. So whatever that works out for you, your very difficult things, make sure you try and tackle them at that time.
So you usually wake up before your 10 hours due and tackle them and after head out on the road, correct?
Yeah, I was usually a 5 6 hour a night guy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really safe to drive a truck and not have enough sleep. That's unfortunate.
Well,
Um,
I'm from the old school, back in the days of where we actually called them comic books, not logbooks, because it was paper logbooks, and we used to tell the story how we chose to tell the story. So that's about as much as I'm going to go into. Much of those
yeah.
days are long past, so we can talk about that. But
No, I heard a story that one guy took a load from Toronto and going to California non-stop, and apparently it was a reefer. He didn't stop at all until going to California, and apparently the whole reefer load was like rotten because a
yes,
reefer didn't have any diesel.
yeah, yeah,
So
I have done some very very quick ones. You can't do this, couldn't do it legally. You could never get away with this today with electronic logs and such like that. But
yeah,
um, I personally left Saskatoon and was in San Antonio, or not San Antonio, sorry, Saskatoon to Amarillo, Texas in 35 and a half hours by myself. Yeah.
that's a lot.
Yeah. I don't recommend it. This is not a safe thing to do, but
No. I only
yeah.
able to do what my longest was during ELOC, and it was during Canada. I was able to drive like 16 hours, even
Yeah.
by ELOC officially,
Yeah.
technically officially, but whatever. Okay, and my second question, I will just throw a scenario at you, and you let me know what I can do better. So I live in a truck. Like I work nonstop, and
Yep.
after by the end of the year, I take a longer vacation time just for Christmas time, because it's snow. It's everybody wants nobody in warehouse. Everybody want to be with their families, whatever. Like it's way waste time
Very
for
much
me at
waste time.
least. Yeah, yeah. And that's what I was doing for like 3 years now, right? And
Yeah.
since I started like a new company, I was doing it at the beginning of this year, working like that and taking like a week off now and then, but not a lot.
Yeah.
And now I'm asking for a Christmas for like 3 4 weeks, and I have a bit collision with explaining my managers that, or boss, should say that, hey, like I work this much, and I need vacation for this time. From your management perspective, right? What points I can clue him in and like let him know that, hey, like I did this much, and he's saying, oh, payments on the truck is a lot and all of that, and I like every time when I was coming back, let's say coming back to the yard, I was taking an extra short trips to finish my e-log. Like if I have
Yep.
like 28 hours or whatever, I would do short trip there and back.
Yeah.
So, and after do my reset and go out to do a long run, right? So like, and I was doing it during the year, all times a year, right? So like how I can actually explain to
Well,
him better.
okay, so here's how it breaks down. As somebody who's owned trucks, I understand the perspective of it costs money to make payments on them. So having a truck sit that has nobody in it for a month is difficult. Now, if that truck has worked, if my driver has worked hard enough, made the money that I can afford to do that, I would do that. I'm assuming that you have a dedicated unit, dedicated piece of equipment. So if you want to take a month off, that's entirely your prerogative. And it may mean that they send somebody else out in your trucks. You might want to take your bedding out, some personal belongings you don't want somebody else having access to, stuff like that. But the amount of hours and the amount of work that you're putting in, it's not unreasonable to ask for that much time off. It's a job in an industry that a lot of people don't understand. So there's going to be a lot of people who are going to hear this that don't understand it. As a driver, you're in demand. Simply put, if I decided I could get medical clearance and I wanted to go back driving a truck, I could literally pick up the phone and I'd probably have a lineup of guys bringing me trucks out the front door. So nobody wants their unit parked for that long. But the flip side is, if you're a good driver, you're difficult to replace. So put it in that perspective of, look, I understand you don't want the truck parked. If you need to put somebody else in it for the time being, go right ahead. But, I've put in this much time. I've worked my butt off all year round. This is when I take my vacation. And this comes back to the whole thing of what I was talking about earlier. Boundaries. This is what you do. This is how you live your life. This is how you choose to work. It's an unusual industry where we do work like that. I worked like that a lot. I would sometimes go put in, 25, 26 days a month for 3 months straight and take a month off. But I made enough money to be able to do that. If you want to do that in your type of an industry, you're welcome to do it. If he wants to put somebody else in the truck, it's his truck. He's allowed to do that as well. So equal boundaries. You can't say, I'm going to take a month off, but you can't put somebody else in my truck. Understand it's not your truck. So therefore, if he wants to put somebody else in
no,
it,
no. I'm not even
it's his
saying
equipment,
about
it's his
this.
prerogative. But your time, this
no.
is a boundary. This is a boundary, Victor. Set it. Do not let somebody violate your boundaries. If I had a guy who worked for me, worked as hard as you, and only took 2 weeks off, 3 weeks off in the entire year, and was gone on the road the rest of the time and lived in the truck and said, but I'm taking a month off at Christmas, boss. Enjoy your vacation. Send me pictures from Mexico. Knock yourself out. I don't care. You're reliable.
I'm a weird person. I love winter.
Yeah. So
I love snowboarding and stuff.
Yeah. So that's what I would tell you with that one is if that's what you want to do and choose to do, and you can afford to do that, it's your choice. Set that boundary. And if they don't respect it, as well as I do, you can have another job tomorrow.
Yeah, that's true. But the company, what I found, like, a bit tough to find. Like, it's possible, but it's a bit tough to find. It's like, out of the companies what I used to work, holy moly, it's just like, level is really high up,
Understand. It comes down to the, put your foot down and set your boundary, and it is what it is. And tell them, hey, if I have to quit, I'll quit, and then you can hire me back in a month if you want. It is your choice. You as a truck driver, you're essentially a free agent almost all the time. The jobs are plentiful. They just are. It's just the reality of it.
Yeah, until Tesla will kick in December.
Yeah, never going to happen. All right. Well, thanks for calling in.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. There we go. Bring in Jaron. How's it going, Jaron?
Good. How's it going? Excellent. I was literally just thinking I was looking to buy a space heater, and then I heard your fellow countryman there say like, "Oh, I love my winters." I'm like, it's 15 degrees Celsius here, and that is really cold for Mexico. Like,
is it really?
Yeah,
Oh,
it's 15 degrees right now. Yeah, it's pretty cold. It was really hot the last few days, and then we had a just gnarly lightning storm the other night, last couple nights, and then today it's just been dreary and drippy and cold. The weather I tried to escape, but it'll get back there here soon. Well, a lot of people don't realize in Mexico City, we're so high up in elevation, it does get cold here. Like it does snow here every now and then. It just never sticks.
Yeah.
In terms of the boundary stuff, this is one that I get a lot, or not really a lot. I used to get it a lot when I was going through my, I guess, initial phases of the transformation self-improvement process. And I was actually in therapy for years. And the first thing my therapist and I worked on, we made a checklist of things to go on. First thing was like start getting adequate sleep. I was smoking a lot of cigarettes, stop doing that. But as far as like any behavioral changes, the number one thing that we really worked on, took me like a year to get to this point to where I could even do it for the first time in my life, was to set boundaries. So that resonated with me when you said that. And I didn't really know even what that looked like, because I was of the mindset, and now I understand people that are of this mindset, because their people will call in or DM me and say, well, yeah, I want to set boundaries, but I don't want to be an asshole. And I think a lot of people conflate those two things unnecessarily. They say, you're mean if you're setting boundaries, and that's really not the case. Really, the way that what that looks like now for those who might be in that situation is say, hey, I'm not on board with that. I don't do that. I remember when I was learning how to set boundaries, I'd observe other people's doing it. And I had a really good friend. He's still my best friend in California. I'll see him here in a couple of weeks. And he's a really good sales guy. And he was doing cold calling, outbounding like 200, 300 calls a day. And you'd hear him on speaker. People would tell him to F off. And he just keep his cool, be like, excuse me, sir. People don't talk to me that way, or you don't talk to me that way. And he never raised his voice. He never got mad. And I took that as an example. And that's kind of how I go about it now. In terms of if someone tries to violate a boundary, and my boundaries aren't that hard. It's like, don't be an asshole in my own personal space. Like my home is my sanctuary. So there's no negative energy allowed in my home. And that can take face in different ways, but I'll kindly show people like, hey, that's fine. If you're upset, that's cool. But we don't do that. I invite you to leave. And I present it in that way. I never tell, oh, I can't believe you said that. Or where do you get off thinking you're so-and-so? I'm just like, hey, that's fine. I don't do that. And you are in my personal space. And I invite you to leave if you choose to continue that behavior. And there's never really any issue with that. But the first time I started setting boundaries, especially with in my dating life or even my professional life too, it was terrifying. It was absolutely scary. And then I learned very quickly, not only is it not that hard, it's actually not that bad. And people respect you more. They treat you better when you do that. And the way I go about my world now is I go about my day. But if someone invades my space and they're being aggressive, they're being mean, I always start at 10, like on a scale of 1 to 10. So I always treat them with the utmost respect, the utmost kindness. And then I let them determine how that interaction is going to go. Now, I don't get down in the mud and wrestle people and have shouting matches or just stupid debates. You mentioned the red pill space. There's a lot of idiots in this space. And in my head, it's like, you know what? Once it gets lower than like an 8 or a 7, in terms of where you're raising your voice, or like any name calling, any cursing, like you can curse to make a point, but if you curse at me directly, then we're completely done. And I usually just sum up the conversation with something like, hey, clearly we don't see things eye to eye, or we're not on the same page, or we're clearly not compatible as people. And I wish you the best in whatever you're looking for. And I apply that to my dating life too. When guys get in topics of, oh, this girl keeps scheduling her, she keeps canceling her, she says that we can't have intimacy until this, or that I need to pay her. It's like, hey, clearly we're not looking for the same things. I wish you the best in whatever it is you're looking for, and I sincerely hope you find it. But
that goes a long way, doesn't it?
Yep, it does.
That phrase goes such a long way. If I wish you the best in whatever, and they instantly realize it diffuses and gets to the point, right?
Yep.
It diffuses it as, okay, there's no need to be aggressive because he's wishing me the best, but clearly this is not going to work. I'm not going to get what I'm after. I've crossed a boundary or done something. So yeah, there's a couple of comments. Let's this one, JRR, you must take care of yourself, make some money and health first. If you don't, you can't help others and you can't change the world. And then, which kind of leads to this one, which I like too, Ernesto. Boundaries are friggin' tough when you've never seen somebody do it in a healthy way. And
that was my problem.
Exactly right. Yeah. And that's learning to set boundaries um, most people find difficult, and learning to enforce them is the harder
Yes.
part.
You have to
Once
follow through.
Yeah, and once you start to do that, everybody thinks, well, I don't want to be an asshole. Well, you're actually, by allowing people to violate your boundaries, you're being an asshole to yourself.
Yes.
So don't do that. Respect yourself enough to say, I'm not going to allow this person to cross this boundary and disrespect me. And like you said, people respect you more. It does. It goes a long way.
That's what I really boil it down to. You have to learn how to have self-worth first, and that's really tough for a lot of people. I remember one of the biggest points in my transformation where it was my my light bulb moment, where I just woke up and just my entire reality changed, where I realized I was out with a buddy one time, and I think I dropped something, I did something clumsy. I'm like, oh, I'm such a klutz, or oh, I'm so stupid, oh, I'm an idiot. He's like, dude, if you keep talking about yourself that way, I'm not gonna be your friend anymore, because if you talk to me that way, I'd literally punch you in the face. And I'm just like, oh. So I became best friends with myself. And once you do that, like, I have a good relationship internally with myself. So I don't really need other people. However, I invite other people into my life. If they see what I'm doing and they want to be a part of it, that's fine. But there are expectations. There is a bit of decorum in how to go about that. And in doing so, I've noticed that the more you respect yourself and the more you hold yourself to your own internal boundaries, that people externally don't really violate them anymore. It's very rare that someone attempts a boundary violation with me, to the point where I hear stuff on the internet, or I see people in like red pill type spaces. I'm just like, what's the issue? What's the beef? You guys are on the same team. You agree on the same thing. Okay, maybe the way of going about it is a bit different, but same team, bro. Like friendly fire. What are we doing here?
Precisely. It's the I don't understand the whole divide of, well, that guy's doing it wrong, you have to do it my way. And we're on the same path. Your journey and your path is different than mine. What works for you works for you. The way you do things, I couldn't do it that way. It wouldn't work for me. I don't have the personality to pull off some of the things that you pull off. I've seen you do it in real life. And I know I couldn't pull that off.
Like Canadian winters. I can't do that.
I'm getting older. I can't do them much anymore either. I might be having to come visit you more often.
I've got an extra room here. That's I saw a lot of guys in Rich's groups where like, oh, I'm gonna go shack up with so-and-so for a month. I'm like, well, I can do that. Like, why am I paying all this money for a furnished apartment? I'll just, get my residency, sign a lease, get my own place, and make a smash pad down here. One last thing before I jump off here and let someone else pop on is the most powerful thing that I learned in terms of setting boundaries is to learn this works in sales too. The old takeaway. In terms of, I have a hard rule with girls I date that we don't go to bed mad. I don't ever really argue with them because I screen on the front end, but sometimes there are disagreements. And if they're throwing tissy fits or little temper tantrums, like, I literally look at them like I look at my niece or nephew. I'm like, oh, you're just being a child. And then I just kind of laugh at them. But if they continue, if they insist, it's like, hey, I don't think you understood me. I'm going to repeat it one more time, and this will be the last time, that I don't go to bed angry, and I won't share my bed with someone who doesn't want to share my bed with me or that doesn't follow that rule. So let me know what you decide to do, but I'm getting kind of tired. You need to let me know in the next 5 minutes. And then I always ask them, do I make myself clear? Is there any miscommunication? Is there anything you don't understand about that statement? And if they continue, then at that point, like, okay, cool. Well, we're done here. Again, it was nice getting to know you. I wish you the best in life. I invite you to leave, and then I open the door for them, and it's over and it's done. But it never gets to that point. Like, maybe once or twice a year, I'll have to have those interactions with people.
And those are good ones. The two, like you said, of the respect yourself with your boundaries. Of I'm going back to drawing a blank now for some reason. The inviting somebody to leave, or the I wish you well. I wish you all the best. It diffuses the situation, and the inviting them to leave. And then, like you said, that one goes a long way for people with boundaries who are having a hard time with boundaries. Is make sure when you set your boundary with someone, do I make myself clear? Because when you say that, you're communicating very politely and firmly that this is a boundary and it can't be crossed. Like, am I making myself clear? As in, do you understand what I'm telling you? It's a polite way of saying, do you get what I'm telling you before I have to be unpleasant?
And it leaves no room for negotiation. Like, this isn't a discussion. It's not an ultimatum. I don't like ultimatums either. You do this, or you do X or Y will happen. Just no. It's this is how I operate. So
Yeah.
if you choose to not operate on that same plane, that's fine. We are all different. I respect our differences, but this will be the end of this conversation. And
Yeah.
that usually works well for me. And the last thing.
Yeah, sure.
One thing that I'm really proud of in my adult life, because I hear a lot of guys in these red pill spaces like, oh, I want to beat that guy's ass. And I call it always alpha all the time. One thing I'm really proud of, I mean, as a kid, I scrapped and I was bigger than everyone else. And there was attempted bullying against me. But since I was bigger than everyone else, I shut that down pretty quick. But as an adult, I've never been in a physical altercation. And that's one thing. I've been to a lot of dangerous places. I've been in really sketch situations, but I've always been able to maintain a degree of diplomacy and just not niceness, but just a really diplomatic way of going about things. And I think that's something a lot of guys underestimate. For example, here's one that I use when I lived in California. You get like a lot of rowdy guys and a lot of frat boy type attitudes at the bars, especially when you're younger, and they're always looking to fight. Don't hang out with those people anymore. If you have people in your friend group like, oh, we're gonna go out and F someone up, you're like, okay, well, that guy's a loser. Don't hang out. Like adults don't really like educated people, like classy cultural people, like you don't get in fights, even in foreign countries, let alone your own. So
Yeah.
I remember one time in San Diego, the same buddy that I watched him observe how to put boundaries. The tables flipped a few years later. We were out at a bar and some big guy, he was real angry, and he comes to me and he's like, bro, like what the F's going on? What are you doing? What the hell? Like, and you could tell he was ready to throw down. I think he was kind of creeping on my chick for the night. And at some point I went to like get some drinks and I came back and like he was laying on my girl and he was like trying to, at the point he like touched her and like went in for like a kiss on her neck. Like she's looking at me like, no. And then I put my hand on his shoulders. Like, hey man, like it was good talking to you, but I think it's time for you to leave. And he was clearly blasted. So he's kind of posted up or did whatever. And like, I'm just laughing. I'm continuing the conversation, whatever. So I go back to the bar later and he's like, bro, like what the hell? Like what's going on? What the F? Like, what do you want to do about this? I'm like, dude, like, so here's a thing I learned in the moment. Match his energy in terms of intensity and aggressiveness, but the words make them not match that. So I was like, bro, I'm going to buy you a beer. That's what I'm doing. What are you drinking? And then his face, he's like, what the hell? He looked stunned. And I came about that. A lot of people don't know this. I had a cousin that was killed in one of the major school shootings in the U.S. like 10 years ago, like the biggest one in the U.S. So we got really into like, what's the psychology of those mass shooters? Like what leads them to do what they do? But I got really interested in the people that survived. Like, how do they choose who lives or not? And there was one, she was like a librarian, and the guy was coming around, asked her some question, and they cited Frame, actually, if guys that know Frame from game. She was familiar with this concept, and she used frame control. So he was trying to bring her into his frame, and she just raised her hand. She's librarian. She's like, excuse me, sir, may I use the bathroom? And it kind of like broke his thought train, and he's like, oh yeah. And she actually ended up surviving from that. So that's something in the moment it occurred to me. It's like, oh, this guy's clearly bigger than me, and he's not happy because I kind of humiliated him. Well, he humiliated himself. He was getting out of line. And when I go to bars, I normally don't get plastered. I'm usually many drinks behind the next most sober person. I do that intentionally, but that popped in my head. Oh, the whole just break his state of frame. And the guy's like, oh yeah. And then turns out I actually sat down, had a conversation for a bit, had just a real crappy day, kind of just a crappy life in general. Like, people have crappy lives. It's a series of bad decisions that they strategically make, but they don't realize they're doing it. And once you understand that and you remove the ego investment, then it's really hard it's really easy to diffuse situations. You're like, okay, this has nothing to do with me. I'm just some dude out here having a good time. And for whatever reason, I reinforced his negative worldview or his negative perception of himself. So that was an ego threat. And his only way to resolve conflict is by drinking himself stupid, or the potentiality of violence. And I think that's a big thing to keep in mind too. You can really diffuse a lot of situations if you know a couple little tips and tricks like that.
Well, yeah, being pleasant. You never know when you might run across somebody like that that's had a really crappy day. And because you chose to be a pleasant person, maybe you changed his day.
Yes.
So rather than, a crappy day ending up in a fight, which potentially could have been hurt, he could have been hurt, potentially he could have hurt you and landed himself in jail. The situation got diffused because you were nice, matched his energy, were funny, and you changed the course of his day.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, did that hurt you in any way?
No, not at all. No.
Made the world a better place.
Yep.
Leave the world a
Absolutely.
better place than you found it.
Okay. Well, that's my
Excellent.
2 cents, or I talk a lot, so my 20
Okay.
cents.
Oh, good.
All right. Take care.
Appreciate it. Take
Bye.
care. All right. All right. So, well, we didn't get the girl to call in, but oh well. Anyhow, that went well. Thanks for calling the calls, guys. Appreciate it. Turned out to go a little longer than I expected with what I had for a little bit of notes today, so I appreciate it. At the end of the day, be nice, be pleasant, set your boundaries, be clear about them, respect yourself, respect others. They'll respect you back. Leave the world a better place than you found it. Have a great day. It's been Bentley James with the Hammercast. Oh yeah, do me a favor, smash the like button, subscribe, notification. I keep forgetting to say that all the time. Blah, blah, blah. Yada, yada, yada. You know what to do. Have a good day.